And welcome back. I'm Paul Allen. Happy to be joined by one of our favorite people here, Quincy. How you been? Kwesi. I'm sorry, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, general manager for the Minnesota Vikings. But we're on a level just to take you behind the scenes here at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, where two studios to the left of us, two studios to what would be the southwest of us directionally, is where those of you who watched Undercover on Amazon Prime, put together by Eli Manning, well, that's where back in training camp, Justin Jefferson donned a costume, called himself Darius Frost. And one of my favorite moments, because it went nuts on social media last week. So then I go to Prime, and I'm like, cool, I have Prime, so I guess I've been paying for that. That's cool. All right, well, I might as well watch it then. And I watched the first Undercover with Baker Mayfield, acting like he was Joe Q's super fan with the mullet and just everything. And then they start throwing passes. People are like, hey. And the rookie receiver, they had three of their players there. And so the rookie receiver's looking at fellow rookies going, who is this? I mean, this guy has an arm. Then he takes the whole thing off, and the ruse was done, and it was beautiful. Episode number 2, Justin Jefferson as photographer Darius Frost. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah comes in August or whatever it was for some, quote, staff photos, end quote. And the ruse and the spoofing was terrific. A lot of great laughs to be had there, especially from you at the end when you figured it out. But I just, there were a lot of great moments there. I still think my favorite is when he called you Quincy.
Well,
hey, Quincy.
A lifetime of having a West African name that I love and dear to my heart, but it's been mispronounced every which way possible. So
really,
there's
it's Kwesi.
Oh man, the first day of school used to be this anxiety-inducing 5 minutes. Just as I knew now I have an A last name, so I was normally quick, but I'd be sweating waiting for the teacher to butcher my name in front of everybody. So those reactions, there's like this little 6-year-old that shows up in those moments, and I just very quickly, hey, it's Kwesi, and move on. But no, Justin, that was an incredible performance. I'm too close to Sam Newton right now. I don't know that I trust him anymore. For people out there, I don't normally get a headshot. I don't care what my picture looks like, I guess. But I asked for one this year, and I canceled the night before. I was like, I don't really want to be memorialized with this mustache. And Sam was like, you gotta do it. You gotta do it.
What do you mean this mustache? You've always had a mustache since I met you.
But the soul.
It was thick.
It
was thick.
And so they kind of talked me into going, and they walked me off the plank there. So now we've got some trust to build back in our relationship, I think.
Yeah, well, that's so fantastic, Quincy. It's Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. It's a squared away, culture-based building that happens to house a football team that plays games. And here's what I'm getting at. You don't think for a second before this whole thing was pulled off that Newton, Anderson, and that entire staff had 5 meetings as to how to handle Kwesi if he gets moody with it or whatever, because he feels like somebody was deceiving him?
It was so well done. Obviously you got to be every once in a while the dial comes to you and the laughs are maybe at you and sort of with you. But no, it was a fun experience. I'm glad Justin got to do it. I wish it wasn't the #1 Prime show so that everybody could see me in my weak moment. But no, cool that we were able to do stuff like that at this facility.
Yeah, but you've always been very comfortable with radio and television and print attention. So therefore, when something comes up on social media that undercovers the #1 thing for the week, I'm sure you're really going to put your thumbs underneath your armpits and flutter your fingers and go, hey.
Oh, yeah.
That's not exactly our general manager, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Off your name quickly, though. I've heard a lot of Kwesis. I've heard a lot of Kwesis in Minnesota. So therefore, like for me, I told you it's a beautiful name. So if it's on the radio or whatever, I'll be like, Kwesi.
You know what? It's sometimes spelled with an A in Ghanaian culture.
Really?
So the E, I could see that throwing people off a little bit.
Okay, well, is Kwesi, and there's a reason for me asking this, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah.
Yeah.
Is that the only part of the name? And here's why I ask, because I was watching a YouTube short yesterday, while I was writing, and there was an interview with Dikembe Mutombo. and the host was like, Well, that's your Americanized name.
Right.
It took Dikembe Mutombo 3 minutes to say his name. I mean, that thing had 19 vowels in it before he got to the first consonant.
Yep.
Or vice versa.
There is a part to my first name that I'll leave out just because pretty much only my family calls me that. I don't know that I want to be walking the streets of Minnesota and have somebody. They'll be like, it's a reaction where I only know that somebody in my family is saying something to me. So.
Yeah. With Justin's giggle. Okay, see, you have one too. So, like, if somebody said, "Paul, close your eyes," and then you're going to hear these laughs, I'd be like, "All right, well, that's Justin 100%. It comes from the chest." With Kwesi, it has a little high pitched thing to it that we can talk about later. I don't know if I've heard Kevin laugh in the last 5 months, but we can work on that against the Chargers. But I'm surprised you didn't get Justin's laugh during this ruse.
A lot of surprises, man. In hindsight, there was so many things that I should have seen. I should have known what was coming. Also, just how weird everybody was acting around. I'm looking at the photographer, but Sam and Jeff are pacing behind.
I know.
Andy looks like he wants to crawl out of his skin.
You're surprised? Well, you would do the same thing if you thought you potentially were losing your job over a ruse.
And because I kept looking at him, I'm like, they told me he was his intern. And I'm like, okay, you hired him, like, cool. And I kept looking at him like, okay, this is your intern. But no, it was, I probably should have got it there. I should have got it when he pointed the teeth, when he said, I don't know anything about football, and then he's naming his contract. Lots of places.
Hit it perfectly, 140.
And, as my wife would probably tell you, Kwesi is not fully in the room at all times when I show up, the God's honest truth.
Well, that's a different conversation for a different day. We need another 30 minutes for that.
Oh, man, we all do, and so sometimes you need to, obviously with her, I buck up and get my attention going. But sometimes in the building, when you're thinking about the 6 things that happened in your day before, 6 things coming after, a little distracted. So I think my detector was a little off there.
Yeah, 2 of us in here, along with you, are dads. So Nordo has 3 young daughters, 9 or 10 for the oldest too. Yeah, 10-year-old twins, and then basically one that's coming up on a year. I have a 25-year-old son and a 22-year-old daughter. The daughter is based in Denver, Colorado after graduating from the University of Colorado. So you're like, yay, we got that degree. Here we go. New job, big girl job. Yeah, until you move from Boulder to Denver and have to find new friends. That's a lot of fun, right?
Oh, man.
It's just big people, big problems, little people, little problems.
Amen.
When you put that whole thing in perspective,
Amen.
okay?
Amen.
Amen. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, general manager for the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, ready? Ready, Sam? Here we go. Football questions. NFL trade deadline's 2 weeks from today. Do people still call people on, like, office phones? I mean, do you have to look at your phone to illuminate, or do you actually, hey, somebody's calling that phone?
My office line has probably rung 7 times since I've been here, and they've all been somebody from the outside who got the number and wants to yell at something that myself or somebody else is doing at the Vikings. On draft day, we do have those landlines, and those will get used on draft day. But other than that, I'm not sure I've taken a call on those landlines.
Have you ever investigated or just let yourself think about what your job must have been like before cell phones and or the internet? Like Sid Hartman, God rest his soul. He would tell a story about, back when the Vikings first started, like 61 or something like that, or it's the 60s or the 70s. And, Tex Schramm for the Dallas Cowboys told this story also, where when it was draft season or free agency or like they're trying to trade or something, that literally a football-related epiphany would hit them. They'd have to pull off the side of the road, find a payphone, make sure they have enough quarters to go into the payphone to call the other general manager in Los Angeles,
It's unbelievable. It's funny. We were in London. I was walking the streets with my family, and I walked by a payphone. I mean, when's the last time you saw a payphone? I used to live in New York City, and I remember days where I was, trying to go around and I had to find a payphone and find a quarter. Those are things that people, kids nowadays probably know nothing about. But, we talk about a lot, just the world and all the information we have at our fingertips. But I almost wonder if you have the Nokia and the iPod Classic that didn't do anything else, would we all be in a better place? I sometimes ask myself the question, do we have too much in the palm of our hands? But, there's probably pros and cons to it. Having information that quickly obviously is helpful. But also maybe that's not helpful to maybe have everything at your fingertip. It's you adjust to the times, but it's a great dynamic we have now.
That whole mental juxtaposition you just went through was fascinating. Well, you talked out both sides of the equation, and the bet settled. We move on. That was brilliant.
I'm learning from Kev. The ocular processor.
That was beautiful. Do you consider yourself, with trading deadline 2 weeks from today, just at your human nature, more of a buyer or a seller by nature? I mean, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's more of a value proposition. You're always looking for opportunities. Where do opportunities align? When you're obviously everything's about winning in the current season, but also you don't want to be so focused on the current season that you potentially hinder yourself in future seasons. So it's always that dynamic of time value of performance, time value of assets. So buyer, in a sense, you're feeling like, hey, this is our year, but in a sport with an oblong ball and injuries and all these different things, it's hard to ever really be so binarily in that sense.
Right.
And then potentially lose assets next year that are going to help you improve. So it's really just that conversation, and you're looking through. We have a trade meeting right after this amazing time I get to spend with you guys. But
thank you.
It's willing through the hundreds of opportunities and then seeing, hey, which 3 or 4 align with our goals that are trying to get better this year, keep our flexibility for next year, all those different things. And it really only comes down to 3 or 4 opportunities. You call on those, you rely on the relationships you have, and maybe it ends up being one deal that we typically made at the deadline.
How close do you permit yourself to get to the players you draft and or bring in via free agency?
It's really hard. When I was deciding on, I was in Cleveland not deciding, but just really asking questions about becoming a GM. That was the one thing I asked Sheldon Day. I've known since I was in San Francisco, and I was like, how do I had a great, because back then when you're not in the chair, you always can be the good uncle almost in a sense, right? And people would come to my office, and I was kind of just like, how do I do that job but still have these real relationships, because it will at some point feel transactional if at the end of the day I have to be the person to be the bearer of bad news. And he said, just be honest with people, be straight up, be yourself, be what you've always been. I think people can tell that you're genuine. So I try and do that in a way that people know that it's real, that I do care about them. I might have to at some point make a decision that you might not like, but I have to do that for the Vikings, but also know that I would drop everything to help you, because I really do mean, and I believe relationships are like that. So that's how you try and treat it. I also don't need to be these guys' friend. I don't know that they need a 44-year-old, friend who I don't know if I'm the hippest guy in the industry anymore. I do okay for a GM, but
you just talked out both sides of the equation again in 8 seconds. That's so brilliant. What's a gift?
But I love the time. It's so cool to be around these guys, and they're younger than me, so they use lingo, and it almost keeps me young. It'll help me when my kids get a little older, so I'll know what pause means or whatever the kids are saying nowadays. But
pause.
Pause.
PAWS?
Right? They say pause. That's the thing, right?
I thought it was some 6-7 thing bouncing around.
I've seen that. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Right.
If people knew how little connection I have to social media, they'd be stunned.
I'm still stuck on fax. I'll just stop there right there.
A little fax machine you'll put in your text message machine.
Yeah, FACTS.
Yeah, that's.
Well, how about that? Well, I mean, if you wanted to make a trade or sign somebody 25 years ago, you had to use a fax machine.
I was talking to Trish about this the other day. I remember a typewriter. I learned on a typewriter. I had a typewriter. And when you messed up, you had to retype that or maybe white it out and write over it. I mean, that's what we were grinding. That was the original School of Hard Knocks on that typewriter.
A few here for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah to close, the general manager for the Minnesota Vikings. Does losing feel worse than winning feels good? Go ahead and talk that one out from both sides.
Yeah, it's funny. I am normally I'm a pretty even person. That Sunday was hard. That was a frustrating game. I think football is typically fair Kev always gets mad at me when I say that, because he's out there dying on the sideline. What do you mean it's fair?
Yep.
But you come up, you watch the film, and when you win, you're typically like, yeah, we won, but there's a couple plays where, that game could have been different. Or if you lose, same thing. Rarely do you watch the game and, when you leave the stadium, you feel like we should have won that game. And then when you watch the film, you feel like we should have won that game. You look at the first downs, the out third downs, time of possession, all the things that matter, and it really comes down to 3 or 4 plays that even if they had big plays, they just weren't as big of plays. We still come out there with the win. And I think, so but otherwise, those times can be frustrating. But otherwise, I treat everything like a learning experience. So I don't really get high or low, happy, sad. It's more about I just got to watch something. We projected what this team could be like. I'm so excited to go wake up in the morning and go learn and study it and see what happens. There's a joy in that process of learning what we are.
But then you actually wake up after a game like that. So I mean, is human nature gets to win too?
It's amazing. You wake up with a sense of, because we get to do something about it. I text our group about that at night. I try and text them after every game, and I said I was frustrated, but I also said that the good thing about our jobs is we get to go tomorrow and try and make it better and make it right. Same with everybody in this building, every player, every coach, every front office, every person who walks these halls. And that's what makes this sport so great, being a part of it. So the joy, the highs and lows really for me only come late, playoffs, different things like that when there's a finality.
Yeah.
When that locker room scene in Glendale where you're seeing guys, so that's where you'll see me. That's probably the only time you really feel me emote, because also I think it's my job to be kind of the emotional balance of the organization. In a sense, my job is to be long-term focused, more, context, different things like that. Never ride the waves with everybody else, knowing that they should happen, but it's my job to kind of to be on the other side.
And but yeah, I mean, there are look in the mirror moments too, right? Because okay, say somebody thinks, hey, this squad's vulnerable. Look at all these games they've missed from these key people.
Yep.
Now we can strike, and that's not a bad way to handle the job. I understand that business part of it. But you also have to be if you're really frustrated with somebody and you have been week after week and, hey, just had a big game or had another bad game, but you know what's going on behind the scenes and you're like, I ain't giving up on this.
Right.
Well, then all of a sudden the 7th is the 6th and the 6th is, we might be able to talk about the 5th later today.
Right.
You got to battle all that, right?
All of it. And, is that person who had a good game, well, what was your prior belief about him? Or was that bad game? Some players, it happens. Great players have bad games. So is that a bad game from a great player or a bad player from somebody who needs to keep improving? It's all, again, that's why one of the things I just love so much about this job, the curiosity that that I have, that I get to display here.
Darius Frost, Sam Newton with media relations permitted me to go to 17 because I know you have that trading meeting coming up. So we'll just end it like this. What music are you vibing these days? And I have a reason for asking that question, something that took place on my radio show yesterday.
Right now, I am listening to this Southern hip-hop kind of classics list. Sometimes when people come in my office for meetings, I'll ask them, hey, what do you want to hear? And Jasper Brinkley, probably a month ago, was like, let's throw some of that Southern hip-hop on. I was like, oh. Wow. I just kind of typed it in. And the first song is this Trick Daddy song that I love. And I know we vibe on music all the time. One of the things I love about music is the first time you hear the beat, your memory goes somewhere special to you. And so this Trick Daddy song comes on, and I immediately go to my sophomore year of college with some of my fraternity brothers sitting in a room, the first time I heard that song. And so the list started that way, and it just kind of continued on. So I've been listening to that for the past month. That's how I get really connected to a list. But some great
sounds easy. Listening to Trick Daddy while you do level 9 calculus. It sounds like it all just fits together.
I changed the techno for the calculus.
Well, what happened yesterday with PJ Fleck, coach of the Golden Gophers football team, who joins every single Monday, is at the end he talked about and we teach music. He was talking about the culture and what they do weekly and how they change things up, and we teach music. Well, that ears immediately perked. And he puts the word how into the band. So I don't know, old school duo, Daryl Hall and John Oates, Hall and Oates, Howe and Oates. Or we're going to play some Halvin Gaye today and learn about Marvin Gaye. So I'm like, well, what about Parliament Howardelic and George Clinton and Bootsy Collins on bass, Atomic Dog and Flashlight and so many different songs, and so therefore that I think that's cool what they do to kind of break it up like that, but it also helps the new age. Or those who are younger learn about the roots of Trick Daddy, the roots of what people listen to now,
That doesn't surprise me. PJ is one of the more unique people I've ever met, creative, passionate. Watched that game on TV, really, really, really proud of those guys. So that doesn't surprise me at all. But no, music's this beautiful thing. I know last night Jackson Smith-Njigba had a great day. I love telling this story, but I'll run into him every now and again. He will remember the top 30 meeting where I asked him, what song would you play if you had something to say about it? He will remember and we'll talk about it. And that's a cool thing that you can connect with people. We're not from the same place. We don't, you know, he didn't have a typewriter in 7th grade, but you know, we can connect on those things and kind of have those experiences, which is awesome.
All right, that's going to be it. Thank you very much for joining. Greatly appreciate you. And if we don't chat on the sideline at SoFi, it's because I envision there could be a moment with the U and Chargers GM Joe. Is it Ortiz? Yeah, Joe Ortiz. He's lost his top 2 running backs and left tackle Rashawn Slater for the season. You've gone through a million games of injuries this season, so maybe you guys just lament a little bit into the game before you compete against each other, you know?
No, Joe's super talented. I've known of him for a long period of time. But as GMs, you don't really lament on those things. It's just, hey, that's the job, and you kind of take the challenge of it. And he's wired that way. And they got a great roster. It'll be a competitive game. I'm excited for it. Two teams that need a win like we always do, so I'm fired up for it.
I appreciate you.
Of course.
Thank you. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, X's and O's, courtesy of 9 to noon on KFAN.